I'm Nina.
And I'm Rose, and we're here to talk about Emmy-nominated shows.
As people who both have made and wish to keep making narrative scripted work, we're a little bit obsessed with TV.
So we'll be discussing our favorite TV from the past year, which has been selected by the Emmy voting body as the best.
Today's episode, Hacks.
So we are very excited to be talking about Hacks this week, and I will throw it over to Kailee, aka Nina, for the nominations.
Okay, so Hacks got 15 nominations in total.
Wow.
Yeah, so it did pretty well. I counted the exact number of nominations this time. So it's nominated for Outstanding Comedy Series. Jean Smart, who plays Deborah Vance, got nominated for Lead Actress in Comedy. These are all in comedy. And Carl Clemens Hopkins played Marcus. He got nominated for Supporting Actor. Hannah Einbinder, who plays Ava, got nominated for Supporting Actress. And then it got Directing, Writing. Jane Addams, who plays Ava's mom, got nominated for Guest Actress. And it got Casting, Cinematography for a single camera series, half hour. Contemporary Costumes, Single Camera Picture Editing. And that got 3 different editing nominations. They were all women. And Production Design and Sound Mixing.
So a ton.
Yeah.
And like across the board, kind of similarly to The Crown, where it was like, not just an outstandingly acted or written show, but like creation-wise, top to bottom. A good time.
Definitely.
Cool. So this is kind of, I think, one of those shows that not as many people have seen. And part of that is because it's on HBO Max, which is a little bit of an accessibility issue. I think not everyone ran out and bought HBO Max. And I'm worried that we're going to continue to see this happen where really well-made shows are going to be sort of inaccessible to a general audience because they're going to be on Paramount Plus, AMC Plus, all these different streaming services that sort of fall outside of the categories of the big ones, which is probably Netflix, Amazon, Hulu to an extent, and maybe I would hear an argument for Disney Plus, even though it's kind of new.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a bummer because this show is really good.
Yeah, it's great.
So, if you're curious, they've actually put one episode, the pilot episode, on YouTube for free, and you can watch that right now. No more excuses. So if you haven't seen Hacks at all, maybe go watch that and then come back because we are going to discuss.
Yeah.
Assuming that you have seen it.
Yes. I would recommend that too. It really is really good.
So let's talk about what we like about the show if we had to narrow it down a little bit.
Okay, so for me, first of all, it's about 2 women, which I love. And honestly, this show, it stands alone really well, but it also gives me a lot of vibes. It reminds me of two other shows that we both really like, which is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Glow. Kind of almost gives me similar vibes as those. And it's totally its own thing. I don't think it's copying them at all, but I get similar vibes from those, which I really like because I think both of those shows are great. So I love that it's comedy. It's kind of a darker comedy in some ways, but it doesn't really show you that till you're kind of in some of the episodes. And I think one of my favorite parts about these characters is that, well, they both kind of suck, but when they're together, you get why they're good people almost. When they're together, they treat each other so poorly, but at the same time, you find the respect for both of them. So I don't know, it's really cool. They do a really good job with these characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Mrs. Maisel, especially because it's the duo.
Yes.
Doing comedy. So that's very specifically similar. Glow is also women in the industry, and something that it reminds me of a lot, and I don't know if you made this connection, but it's a third show that we both love, which is Unreal.
Oh yes, it does.
Which is way dark.
Yeah, Unreal's really dark.
Really dark. Pitch black comedy. Not even sure you can call it a comedy necessarily. It's more like a dramedy.
Yeah, probably.
But it is about women in the industry who are kind of awful
Mm-hmm.
and using that awfulness as a skill so that they can accomplish and achieve and rise and stuff.
Yeah.
So this show has kind of a unique perspective, though, where it's very intimately like about their relationship at the core. There are other sort of career-related conflicts that are happening central or not centrally to the story, but like around it and with the other characters and stuff. But this one's a little more, I don't know, intimate, small, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's it's a wild time. Let's put it that way. I think like the relationship is interesting because she, being Deborah, who's played by Jean Smart, is like a classic kind of boomer character where she's just like older and more established and very comfortable, where Hannah Eyeminder, who plays Ava, is like I would say like young millennial, old Zoomer.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I think she's technically like 23 or something, right?
Yeah, and I think she might even say in it that she's Gen Z or something. I'm not sure, but yeah.
She's like claiming Gen Z, but like she's in her.
She has millennial
20s,
traits.
She's like, yes, yeah. So there's a lot of like generational clash where like I think it's so funny. Like Ava is constantly trying to explain herself, like as being like, well, as a young person, and Deborah's like, no, you're just an asshole. And they do a really, really, really good job at giving you the perspective of Deborah's character, who is older, and being like, oh, she is just an asshole. Oopsie. And like, it's things that we've said or thought or talked about, you know, as like young people in the world. And I'm certainly on the older side of that now, I feel like. But it does a good job at like not creating within the audience this like divide. Like you really can see both sides of the story. And so I think that's like the strongest part of the writing for me, and why I truly love this show, is that it's a generational story that doesn't use pure like sweetness and saccharine sort of bonding and stuff to make these characters see each other. It also uses like human logic, where it's like, oh, that's not how people behave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I also love it because of the generational nature of it. You don't see many things, shows, movies, whatever, with older women. And I love that they highlight her in a really good way. Like they do show her age. Like she acts her age, and like, but it's like a thing that works in the show. Like it's not, many shows with older women, like it's not usually like respectable or whatever. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't. But in this one, they really like make it so that you want to respect like the older generation and the younger one. Like they have to come together and sort of respect each other, but it's cool.
Yeah. It's a really like lovely role for Jean Smart, who's been doing some cool stuff in her like older age.
Yeah, she
that I'm so jealous of. So just another like feather in her cap, because she's incredible in Legion and she's so good in Watchmen. She's amazing in Fargo, and I haven't watched Mayor of Easttown, but
I haven't either.
Really good in that too.
I have heard that.
And then you get this, which is like the comedy side. That's a lot of like drama and some like sci-fi and stuff, doing comic book adaptations, but she's just so good in this. So let's talk about some of our favorite scenes.
Okay. So one of I love a lot of this. I honestly love a lot of like Ava's lines. She's so like, she's very blunt about what she says, and she has so many different, I don't know, she's just very like honest about things that's very relatable. Like she says a lot of stuff that like I as a millennial like would relate to. I really enjoy one of the scenes I enjoyed, it's just like kind of simple, but it's really funny, is when they're driving on their road trip in episode 2, and she's just like, they have some like funny, quirky things that they're saying, and one of them is like, so are you like an environmentalist? Like, I believe I am, but then I hate those like paper straws. Like, I don't know, she says it way better. Like, there's so many lines like that where it's just like, yes, like, I'm the same as you, I feel like. But I actually really love that episode, and I love them like going to the shop trying to get the pepper shaker. And
Yes.
just like how that all comes about and eventually her getting it for her, but like the whole like process of that happening is just, it's really good. It's really funny, I think, too. So that's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, and that's one of their like early kind of bonding times too.
It is.
I just decided to pick a random one, and I rewatched the episode where Deborah goes to get an eye lift.
Yes, that's
so
a
she's
good one.
in this, she like goes and has this surgery, and then she's in this like recovery, like treatment facility for fancy rich people, and she asks Ava to come with her. So there's there's this whole thing where Ava has left her a voicemail and she has to like delete it off of Deborah's phone, but Deborah has had surgery, so like her Face ID thing isn't working. And she calls her friend, and her like kooky friend comes up with the solution to go take the phone to the wax museum in Las Vegas and hold it up to the Deborah Vance wax figure. And
it works.
And it works. Which is just like, it's just such a funny idea, like really well written and clever. But also, Jean Smart is like posing, if that's her, like in the get up, and she has like specific makeup on to like look like her wax self. Which is like amazing to me.
Didn't realize
just
that.
An extra little added bonus of hilarity. And it's kind of like, there's stuff like that where they're like doing hijinks, and there's a lot of like people driving through the desert really fast, you know, like angrily, and
yes,
I love that. And then there's also like really dark moments too of like suicide, and her dad is sick, and just other things that happen that are just like really shocking in the other direction, where you're like, okay, that's not funny. Like, I am destroyed by this. So it sort of like does this in a way that I think doesn't work, but we can get into that. So we have had the list of all of the nominations, and I think one that stood out to me especially was the costume design, which I'd love to talk about.
Yes.
Because, for Ava's character, she's basically just dressed badly the whole show. I feel you can refute me in the comments if you love her outfits, but I think she, you know, like intentionally like looks kind of crappy. Versus everything that Deborah is wearing that's like got like the sparkles and the draping and like the big fancy prints and like classic rich old lady stuff.
Yes, very glamorous.
She wears
sparkles.
Yeah, she wears more than one thing that's completely like glittery, which I'm like, amazing. And lots of wigs. She's just doing like a ton with the old like Las Vegas sort of vibe, where everything's a little like over the top and sort of unnecessary and doesn't look like fully human. Which I loved so much. But this is my secret way to segue into talking about the standout of this show. And I think like everyone who's watched it knows who I'm about to talk about, but Kayla the assistant.
Oh, Kayla's the best ever. She's so funny.
Kayla is played with absolute aplomb and perfection by Meg Stalter, who you should follow on Twitter because she posts sketches and stuff like that. She's also on TikTok and, you know, the internet. But she's so weird in this show. And she's wearing this like sexy business casual all the time. Where she'll have like a pencil skirt and like a silk blouse, but it'll have some element of like where she's also wearing like pigtails or something.
Yes.
You're like, what? So I think that in particular like stands out to me. I want to know, as far as like the categories and what it's nominated for, what stood out to you?
So, cinematography really stood out to me. I did a little bit of research because I kind of wanted to see if there's anything out there about what the cinematographer said. And there is. And I really enjoyed hearing a little bit of what he talked about. And it is, so something that I noticed is the main thing for the cinematography is the colors. It's pretty warm. It imitates a lot of like, almost like old Las Vegas colors. And like, you see that in the production design too. But there's a lot of like oranges and browns, and you know, you really feel like you're in a casino, obviously. And But something I liked hearing from the cinematographer, whose name escapes me right now, but he he really tried using colors, like, so in the beginning, Ava's colors are very cool, and she lives in LA, and LA is a very warm place, obviously, and it's something she really wants. She wants to be a part of LA, and she wants to be a part of Hollywood, but in her scenes, like, they're all very cool colors, and there's just, like, warmth, but it's, like, in the background, so, like, she's not there, like, she can't reach it. And then she gets to Vegas, and there's a lot of warmth in all of Deborah's, and she, like, like, almost too warm in a sense. Like, she gets there, and Deborah's, you know, like, living this extremely glamorous life, and it's, like, kind of two extremes coming together, and as they come together more, the palette becomes a little more soft and kind of, like, combines a little bit. Also, an interesting thing is that, like, Ava's shots a lot of times are more, like, they're more handheld. They're a little more, like, choppy almost, like, you don't, and almost, like, more close-ups, more, like, messy kind of. And then obviously Deborah's shots are, like, in her home, and they're beautiful, and these wide, like, sweeping, like, smooth shots. But so they really tried to go with the characters, and, like, you take their personalities and put it into the camera work. So it's a little more subtle, but I think you can definitely tell, like, when you pay attention. It's really cool. So
that's so interesting, I think, because cinematography is, like, not my area. I'll be the first to admit it. But when you're watching it, it's influencing you in often subtle ways like that.
Yeah.
Where, like, you're saying, like, oh, Deborah's are smooth. And now I'm thinking, like, yeah, they are really smooth. And sort of, like, she's established, you know, she has a routine. Whereas Ava is, like, she's completely out of her element. She's living in a hotel room. And, like, her life is really in upheaval. So I think, like, those subtle choices are so interesting to me, and I always, like, I wish that stuff was more well publicized.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, just, like, so when you're watching something, you can appreciate the fact that, like, you know, you watch credits. Well, I always watch credits. Mm-hmm. Everyone should watch the credits.
Agreed, I do too.
This is my request for you. So many people are involved in the creation of these things, and to assume that there's people that are just kind of, like, doing their jobs, you know, is, like, fair, but it's not really true. There are, like, a lot of artists that work in the filmmaking process, and they're coming up with ways to contribute to the storytelling. Like, they're all storytellers. Even technical people, especially technical people, are storytellers. True. Just as much as, like, the actors and the writers and stuff. And because it's not as discussed and, like, people don't know how to look for it, I just think they don't notice.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah. So I like hearing that intention is really interesting. I don't think that necessarily means, like, oh, well, now that I know the intention, like, I'll vote for you.
Right.
The art should stand alone. The art should always stand alone. But as just, like, lay people, you know, who are, like, interested in the industry and have fun, like, analyzing things, I think it's important to be aware of.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I don't think it's not necessarily like, oh, like, this is suddenly amazing, because, yeah, it should stand alone. But I like hearing it, and it adds something to me. And looking back, like, it's like, oh yeah, that did influence me. Like, they did that. That was the intention, and it worked, I think, which is, like, the cool thing to look at and see. Yeah,
especially when you have a situation like this where your characters are, like, completely on opposite sides and, like, really at odds. They don't come together for, you know, quite a while in the first season. Which is good. I mean, obviously you want to have dramatic tension.
Yeah, it's true. Were there any other things that you enjoyed or that you wanted to win in?
You know, I think that Jean Smart should win all the prizes.
I kind of agree.
Every prize. She's doing, like, a lot of interesting, funny stuff. That is also very sad and, like, very grounded in a person who has had, like, kind of a terrible life.
Yeah.
Like, success, but also misery. Mm-hmm. And they both, you know, kind of share that. They both have experienced success, but also have, like, misery in their private lives. And I think, you know, there's a lot to be said for what Hannah Einbinder is doing too, but I think hers is just, like, a little more brash, a little more abrasive. It's like,
Yeah.
slightly less interesting, and maybe like the character will evolve. But I think what Jean Smart is doing is like incredible.
Yeah, I think with Ava's character, I think there's more to see there, and I think we will. It is renewed for a season 2, so I'm excited to see what else there is. And I think she has done an amazing job, but like if she doesn't win, like it wouldn't be it shouldn't be the end of the world for me no matter what, but I think it would be okay. Like she has so much more that I think we're going to see from her. So
yeah, and I think like there's a very big difference between her character who just like says everything versus Deborah who like really decides what to say, and she's very
she does, yes.
Everything. There's just more control in the character, so there's more control in the acting. It's like, oh, that's always going to be the case. I will say that with the writing, I don't think the jokes that they write are funny. The jokes that the characters say to each other are funny.
I agree.
And then she gets up on stage to like do a stand-up set, and I'm like, this is bad. And like even in the transition when they're like working together and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. And there's like kind of this big scene where she like harasses this guy and pays him money. It's weird. It's like, these aren't good. So as far as writing, I don't think it should win writing awards. I think like when your show is about stand-up, your stand-up should be funny.
Yeah. That's definitely something we can compare to like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where whenever Midge gets on stage, I laugh every time. Like it's so funny.
Yeah.
And the things she says off screen are funny too. But yeah, on this, or off stage, on this one, yeah, like everything they say to each other is really funny. But I would agree, I was never like, I was waiting for them to like prove to me that their shows were really funny, and I was never getting that from them. So
yeah. And so like, you know, the show is called Hacks. Are we supposed to just believe that all stand-up is hacky?
Maybe, I guess.
I would hear an argument for that. I don't know that I agree, but I would hear it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So after watching Hacks on HBO Max, I just love that it rhymes.
I know.
What did you take away? What did you learn as a creator?
That is a good question.
You can also say you didn't learn anything.
That's fair.
Because I didn't. I didn't walk away from this feeling like masterpiece of the genre, masterpiece of TV, masterpiece in general. I was like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
There are good elements. There are things that I was impressed by. I'm excited for more of the story, but I am like a little, I don't know, passive, I would say, in like my relationship to the show, in that like I like it, I'll recommend it to people. I'll probably watch it again at some point in my life. Definitely. Like it's good. But I didn't walk away being like, I'm stunned.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I would agree with that. Like I think that might be why maybe not as many people are talking about it. Like, yeah, it is still in its first season and it was really good, but like it has like more, there's more that we're going to get from it. And I think it's not quite in its prime yet. So I love it still, but and I'm way excited because I feel like often with shows like this, we get a second season and it like can be really, really good and just like get even better. So I'm hoping that's what we get from this one. Yeah,
there's room for improvement.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessarily what it is, though. I don't think it needs to change. I just think it's a good show.
Yeah, no, it's a good show. I think more what I'm thinking is like, we've gotten like, so because the episodes they're only half an hour, like in 10 episodes, you can only go so far. So like in season 2, we're going to get more character development and more of the story that I think maybe that's like, I don't know.
I also have a strongly held belief that not every show needs to be the best show.
True.
I think we have this weird obsession right now with just raising the bar and everything being better than it used to be. And like, that's stupid to me. Like we're creating an environment in art and the world where it's like not possible to be like good at something and do a good job at it. It's like, oh, you have to be the best. You have to be outstandingly better and different than anything that's ever happened before. And I just feel like that's hugely detrimental and like not going to do anyone any good if the bar is you know, not even able to be seen at this point. And I think like a perfectly good show still deserves awards. It can still be at the peak of its game and be a perfectly good show. I don't hold with this notion that like everything needs to be over the top the best lately. Like,
yeah, that's a good point. Like there needs to be there
down.
are levels of good shows. And this is a very good show, but it's not the best, but still great. It's really fun.
And like I don't even know what the best is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like taste is so subjective. There's so many options lately for especially TV. Like I don't know what the best is. I'm not going to tell you like the best show on TV is X because guess what? I haven't seen them all for one.
Right.
So I can't like actually say that. But also I just think it's like this obsession with perfection is like deeply uninteresting. So go watch Hacks. It is not perfect. It is awesome.
It is.
Thank you so much for joining us during our discussion of Hacks on HBO Max. Go watch it. The 73rd will be airing live coast to coast on CBS Sunday, September 19th, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern time. We will leave a link in the description about how to watch it. And if you liked what you saw here, consider becoming a patron of me on Patreon and supporting Kailee in her shop, Peachy Lemonade Co. All proceeds go toward making sure that we can continue to create awesome stuff.
Yes. Thanks for watching.